Welcome to Hasani Management Inc.'s first virtual global symposium. My name is Nikki Wilson, and I will be the moderator for this symposium. Hasani Management Inc. Hasani Management Inc.'s mission is to educate and empower youth, including youth with special needs, by enriching and cultivating the social and cultural fabric in the Cleveland community through cognitive and life skills experience. Our purpose is to give back to those who are less fortunate and do not have the resources available to them to achieve these goals. Our purpose is executed by showing our youth alternative avenues of expression and inspiring philanthropy. Our team is comprised of compassionate individuals who take pride in uplifting their communities. For this symposium, I would like to go over a few housekeeping rules. This symposium's purpose is to create a safe space where we all can unite and our voices can be heard. We have 4 priorities that we are going to focus on for this symposium, and they are the urgency of safety, the urgency of optimal health, the urgency of education enrichment, and the urgency of the family connection. We ask that during our roundtable discussions that we all be respectful and mindful of this purpose, that we are creating a safe space. If you're accessing the symposium via Zoom, we ask that you keep your mics muted until it is your turn to present, or we have opened up the roundtable discussion. If you have a question, please raise your hand by using the Zoom tool. You can also add your question to the chat box, or if you would like to address our panelists directly, you can unmute your mic, and I'm just simply asking if you can state your name. We have a very robust program, which can be found through our digital flyer, our digital program that lists the order of service for this symposium. So with no further ado, let's begin. I am pleased to announce and introduce Hasani Management Inc.'s President, CEO, and founder, Ms. Shanitha Hall, who will provide us our gratitude and a welcoming statement. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first ever symposium. It is wonderful that you all are here today with us. I just want to take the time to thank everyone again for their time. I just want to take the time for us to have a moment of gratitude and appreciate that we are able to breathe. During this pandemic crisis that we're all facing, there are so many layers to it, from the pandemic to social injustice to civil unrest. So I want to just take a moment for us to just have a moment of silence and gratitude for us being able to breathe, for us to being able to be alive, and to be able to participate and engaging with our family. We'll have a moment of silence. The moment of silence also is for those who are not with us right now, those who can't be with us. I would like just for us to take a moment to just take a few deep breaths in, because we are alive, because we are here to breathe for those who can't breathe, because we have a purpose, and we are grateful for that. Thank you all for joining this symposium. I hope you enjoy. Back to you, Nikki. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hall. And our first speaker is going to be, she's going to provide us some opening remarks, and it's going to be Ms. Sarah Continenza, who is a social justice advocate and a nonprofit leader and policymaker.
I'm very thankful to be here today. I appreciate the invitation. A little bit of background on me. I have spent several years all over the world. I spent time in Peace Corps Burkina Faso in West Africa. And that's where I really learned so much about, true humanity and what we as humans should be like before we get, cultured away from our tribal roots. So it was a very amazing experience, and it definitely transformed my vision of this world. I've lived in Japan. I taught English out there. I served 4 years at the Hunger Network of Greater Cleveland, managing a wellness program, teaching people how to treat food as medicine. That furthered my passion about what I do. I have a master's in public administration. I currently serve as Ward 3 councilwoman in South Euclid. And I'm also the founder of a nonprofit called Food Strong, where we work to use fresh food as an ingredient to improve conditions in communities, specifically wellness, social, economic, and more. So I'm very passionate about this topic, particularly as it relates to health disparities that we see with people of color. And we see that as they're struggling now with this whole COVID pandemic. I called my presentation, The Urgency of Now, Thriving in Times of Chaos. As we can tell, we really are in a big transitional phase right now. I'm going to start with a quote, one of my favorites. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. This is the unfolding conundrum of life and history. There is such a thing as being too late. There is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. MLK Jr. So I always like to start on a good note. We live in an amazing place, a beautiful place. We're alive. As Chanita said, we're breathing. Life is beautiful. And we are experiencing something that we would consider maybe as a collective awakening. It's a pretty cool time to be alive, but it's chaotic. And a lot of things are being uncovered right now. We have all these things going on with the pandemic, our economy, authoritative governments taking more control. We're losing our privacy. Police are super militarized right now. We have disasters. I mean, the list goes on, and it's causing a lot of uncertainty and fear for people. But that fear is the last thing we need to embrace if we're really going to succeed in this time. So, as we know, people of color have been for a long time experiencing adverse health outcomes, particularly when you factor in income levels. And we see that right now in this pandemic. It's been all over the news that people of color are struggling more, dying more, and even contracting the disease more. Systemic racism has played very many roles in this whole fact. It's why I've dedicated my life to what I do. But I wanted to step back a little bit because this has been such a hotbed topic. And I want to talk about something that's at the root of this and at the root of so many other problems that we face today. And that's class warfare. Because if we can understand that bigger, broader picture, I think we'll be able to have a better understanding of what we can do to be proactive. So class warfare, this has been going on since the dawn of time, whether it's the Industrial Revolution, slavery, mass genocide of the natives in America, sweatshops, taking out land in the Amazon and destroying people's homes. The list goes on, but let's talk a little bit about how that relates to here. So, back in the early 1900s, there was a big shift of people coming from the South to lead a better life here in Cuyahoga County. People of color that had finally gotten freed from slavery, generational slavery, and they thought, hey, Cleveland's a great place. It was on the Underground Railroad. Let's go lead a better life. So they started coming up in droves. Maybe 60,000 people came in about a decade. It was a big influx. And at first they started integrating into other communities, immigrant communities. But eventually the powers that be decided that's not what they wanted, that could result in some sort of solidarity. And well, we know that divide and conquer is a major tool. So they didn't want that. So there became a whole agenda around keeping people of color in specific neighborhoods only and not allowing them to go elsewhere, not allowing them to get grants or loans, keeping businesses and resources out of these communities. We know about redlining. We know about racially restrictive covenants. We know about, dumps being put in communities like East Cleveland where, hey, they're just people of color. Who cares, right? So we know that's been going on for a long time. And if you overlay a map, I had put in my presentation, a map of redlining, and then you overlay that map with food deserts, which were created through these different tactics. It's very centered in the inner city community, specifically on the east. And then overlay another map of life expectancy, where things were redlined, where there are now food deserts, and where there are lower life expectancies, they're all the same areas. And there's no surprise there. So we know there's a big issue, and that stems from class warfare, specifically due to race. We also know that, big corporations have been lobbying our government for a very long time. They've got the money, so they get the power. This is something that there's been a lot of pushback in government, but it doesn't mean that it hasn't been a big, big issue. And then we have to think about the fact that 6 corporations own 90% of the media that we consume on television or Netflix or any of it. 6 corporations. So that goes to show that, money can buy a lot, including your government, including your perspective. So we really have to understand these scenarios. We have to understand that as of 2014, 80 humans have more wealth than the bottom 50% of the worldwide population. 80 people. So that is the root. Because when you really trace the money, those same groups are the ones that control the media, our governments, control the police force and the outcomes there, the television, all these things that we're seeing, experiencing, and becoming very afraid because of. Not to mention controlling the central banks, and now our debt bubble is about to burst, with especially when it comes to the hyperinflation that's going to be created with the trillions of dollars that are being printed out of thin air right now. There's a lot to unpack here, and I'm not doing any of this. I'm not saying any of this to cause fear or panic. I'm just laying a foundation, because what I want to talk about is solutions. So together is where we will come up with the solutions, because we are all in the same boat together now. As we have seen, yes, people of color have been struggling, and yes, we've had some extremely bad outcomes in that department. But now, as we're seeing, when we start really focusing on that 1%, we understand this is more class warfare, because dumps are also put in low-income communities that are not of color, and we're seeing this all over the world. So what we have to understand is what we can do, and that means we need to get rid of the divide and conquer. We have to shut off the television and see each other for who we are, and not allow things to create fear and panic within us. We have to educate ourselves by diversifying the sources of information that we use. Pay a lot of attention and ask a lot of questions. Question everything, because especially when you see just how biased things are, we have to know that there is usually some sort of moneyed interest behind it. So let's dig deeper and ask those questions. And we have to stand in solidarity. We cannot forget the golden rule. We have to be safe. We have to communicate with one another in a safe way. I know that this pandemic has created a lot of uncertainty in how we could do that, but there are ways to connect, and we should take advantage of all of them. We need to come together and support our other local businesses. Vote with our dollars, because that's the biggest vote you got, besides actually showing up to the polls, and that's very important too. Don't turn a blind eye to oppression, because if it affects one person, it affects us all. One of my other favorite MLK quotes is, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." So those are some of the bigger picture solutions we can talk about. And then COVID specific, we have to remember to take care of our temple. I see a lot of people, sitting inside their homes all the time, not getting a lot of exercise, consuming a lot of television, which is, associated with fear. And just not nourishing ourselves. We have to make sure we nourish our temples, our mind, our body, and our soul. Drink a lot of water, get that sunshine, stay active, and make sure you know what you're putting in your body. We have to also be mindful of our interactions with others because of germ spreading. And one issue that I know Chanitha is working very hard on is masks, and I applaud her, to making sure that everyone has a mask to protect themselves and to others. I just wanted to throw out there too, just make sure you educate yourself on that proper mask wearing, that it is from it's to prevent you from spreading it to other people. And it doesn't help keep you from getting it. So we want to make sure that when we wear masks, we wear it responsibly. We don't touch ourselves, our faces are adjusted all the time because that's going to spread germs. And because it's to protect others, we don't need to be wearing it in the car, in our homes, jogging alone on the street. Actually, one man was jogging with a mask and collapsed his lungs. So you just have to be very careful because, you know, you're meant to breathe out the toxins. And when you keep recycling them without giving yourself a break, that could cause issues. So it's very important to be responsible with that. They are a great tool. So let's just make sure that we do it responsibly and build our immune system naturally. That's such an important thing to remember, you know, not smoking, getting that exercise, not, you know, drinking all the time, getting enough sleep, and just try to reduce that stress too. Like I said, that fear is something that a lot of people are, you know, resting at right now, and we need to lift up ourselves out of that. Don't forget that food is medicine. You know, my nonprofit Food Strong, we're focused on making sure that people have access and appreciation for the foods that nourish our minds and our bodies and our soul. Shop local. You know, if you don't know, right now you can double your money unlimited if you have SNAP benefits at any farmer's market or supporting Dave's supermarkets. You can literally spend $100 of SNAP and get $200 worth of food from the market. So it's a great opportunity right now. So take advantage of it. Grow your own food whenever possible. Know what you have. Know what's around you. Know what's edible. Read those ingredient labels and avoid things you cannot pronounce. Those are so important. And one other major thing I'd like to say is don't forget that words are magic. Words are powerful. They are one of the most powerful things in the universe. So when we go about our days, whether we're posting online or writing signs or chanting at marches or whatever we're doing, make sure that whatever spell you're casting with the words that you're putting out into the universe, that you're doing so mindfully. So I know that, you know, a lot of people out there, for example, are yelling, "I can't breathe." And I understand why, and it's a powerful statement. But let's see if we can refocus into saying something like, "I am breathing. It is a blessing." Let's focus on these positive things and not bring ourselves down, because love will always trump fear. And if you think about these two very important emotions, love and fear, it's like AM and FM. If you tune into love, you won't be, any of that fear level stuff would not be able to tune into you, and vice versa. So try to elevate to love and stay there, because that fear will only hurt you and hurt this entire world and hurt our ability from elevating out of what we have been suffering from as a result of what I spoke from earlier, class warfare. So together, through self-knowledge, solidarity, wellness of our mind, body, and soul, mindfulness, and raising to love, we can shift from this individualized victimhood to collective change agents. We can take all those bad things we've been seeing and experiencing and turn it into growth. What will you change? If you want to contact me, you can find me on my website, foodstrong.org, or email me, info@foodstrong.org. I hope you enjoy this, and I'm here for any questions. I'll have to jump off soon because of a council meeting for South Euclid, but I'll stay as long as I can. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Continenza. Thank you so much for your time. Our next speaker is going to be Ms. Stephanie Howes, who's the state representative who serves in the Ohio House of Representatives, representing House District 11.
Beautiful people, how is everyone doing? How are you? How is your energy? I just want to have a brief moment to share with you the safety, the urgency of safety, right? So we are in this time now where we are seeing civil unrest all across this country, all across this world, specifically focusing on the safety of Black folks all across this globe. And what does that mean? Being a legislator in the state of Ohio, I think this time it's a really different moment, I would say, that I've experienced in my lifetime, where you are seeing a coming together of different people, of different ethnicities, different socioeconomics, different genders that are coming together to really raise up this voice about safety. And as a legislator, why this is important, we know that everyone has not felt respected, protected, and safe in their own communities. You ask people right now, do they feel safe? Have they felt supported? And the answer is no. And so what can we do about it? This is where we need you. You know, I tell people all the time, you know, and people really sometimes don't take it seriously when people actually talk about voting. The policies that we have impacted, I know Ms. Sarah, she talked about redlining and other practices that have gotten us to this place of the disparities. We are going through a global pandemic that's going on right now where people have not been safe in terms of a healthcare system. Many of these conditions have been created through policy. People create policy, right? And so now is a time where it is crucial and imperative to have people in place that will really dismantle this system as we've known, that have created the conditions that they were designed to do. You know, we are seeing the product of a system that was not created with Black people, by Black people, and for Black people. So this is what we are seeing in this world. I'll give you like two things that are happening in the legislature that can show you the difference on what it means to have people who are willing to be partners and work will to build a system of dismantling this system of racism that we have. So currently it's been a movement here in Ohio to declare racism as a public health crisis. In the Ohio Senate tomorrow, they actually will be having testimony where people will be sharing their stories on racism. You will hear the stories from health perspective. You will hear from a criminal justice perspective. You will hear from an education perspective. And the Senate and the Senate president, one of the things that he noticed and he said is that people are not out on the streets for nothing, right? Like people aren't out there because they don't have anything to do with their time. There is something happening. And we know that the civil unrest that our communities are experiencing are a direct result of the visual killing of George Floyd. But we know that it is just symbolized in all the things of Desmond Franklin, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Ahmaud Arbery, and the list goes on and on and on. And now people are starting to be awakened. And because of the movement of the people, this president of the Ohio Senate heard you and heard the collective us and said, you know what, we're going to listen to this resolution because we believe that the people that are in the streets and the legislators that are bringing this legislation forth are worthy to be heard at this moment in time. At the same moment, we have in the Ohio House, the chamber that I am in, where we're hearing the third hearing in the Criminal Justice Committee. It's called House Bill 381, legislation known as Stand Your Ground. Now, people heard about this, but Stand Your Ground is the legislation that ultimately was the reason that the man who killed Trayvon Martin was able to get away. It was due to this policy, Stand Your Ground, which states basically in essence that you do not have an obligation to duty to retreat, okay? So this is the policy that is currently being sent in the Ohio House, which is different than the Ohio Senate, right? So we have a lot of things going on where people believe that that we're gonna get tired, that they can continue to have House Bill 381 go through the legislature in Ohio because, you know, folks that are outside with civil unrest and protesting, they're gonna forget. They're not gonna remember come November when it's time to vote. And it's not just people in the big cities that people wanna talk about, Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. You will see them Athens County, Adams County, you name it. There are Ohioans of all different races that are rising up. But I bring this up because we are talking about the urgency of safety in our communities, and legislators have a vital role in making and changing this system truly for all. And there are things happening all the time. You might not have to be an expert, but I will just say there are truly true pleas and the urgency of us to be safety and understanding. If you don't have people in the place that have the courage and the will to do what's right, and having the majority of those people in place, then we are not going to get to what we have. So I am going to stop right there because I know we have a lot of things else going on, but I just want to let you all know that that it is vitally important for you to stay connected to the people that are elected. We work for you. And I really want you to understand, we work for you. We are not on these pedestals. They are so far removed from everyday life. We work for you, and you must hold us accountable so that we can do the work in the will of the people to keep people safe so that everybody can truly live what we put out here, this thing called the American dream. God bless you all. I pray that everybody takes care of themselves, and I love you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Howes. We love you as well. Thank you so much for sharing information. I'm going to now open up our first roundtable discussion. This is the time. If you have questions, please present them to Ms. Howes and Ms. Continenza about anything that they have asked. Thank you so much. I see a hand raised. So I'm going to ask if you can please unmute your mic and please speak your name so we can address you. And please direct your question to who would like to direct that to.
Hi, my name is Tamika Range, and I'm excited about this call. Sarah, I thank you. I've been with you and done some work with you, and I really appreciate you being on this call. And I look forward to connecting with you so that we can make sure we don't have food deserts in other places, and how to move the planting to individual homes from a school perspective. And then Stephanie Howes, I want to thank you so very much for leading. You said so many things that I was sitting over here like, man, yes. But how do we, I guess one of my questions that I had sent out was, how does the census play a part in this? How does our council men and women that are in place play a part in educating us as the people versus us waiting on media to inform us about these different laws that are going into place or these things that are on the table to be discussed? How is it that our councilmen and women are supposed to help us receive the information that you're sharing right now? I think people really depend on media a lot to be educated on. And I think one of the things that I'm finding in the African American community, especially with the younger generations, is so much information out there. Where do you go to get the real information?
So I'll try to summarize this really quickly. Hi, good afternoon, Ms. Range. So in regards to the census, we know is every 10 years. We as a country are supposed to take account of everybody that is here. The count really determines representation, right? So again, when people talk about undercount, the reason why undercount is problematic for a place like where I'm based here in Ohio is that if you don't have all your people counted on the official count, then you will not have the true representation your community probably needs. So those who may have the same values or the same vision for your community will probably not be able to be put in the position to help support that because they haven't been counted, because collectively we have not been counted. So that's why the census is very important, and the allocations of resources is about $1,800 a year for each person. So again, that's a total of $18,000 a community will lose for every person who is not counted in their community. And that can be a lot for just the basic necessities that a community has. When we think about getting information out, that's one of the things we have to establish better communication tools. Because again, I'll always say here in where I am in Cleveland, you think about having 12 different government systems, right? So we have local, county, state, federal, and 3 branches. That is a lot, right? It's a lot and it's overwhelming. And so we just have to really begin to think through better communication channels. One of the things that we do know is when I talk about stand your ground, I would say a part of legislative calendars are real policy intent, but they also must be political. You know, this is politics too, right? Because you have people that want to have their narrative come in November. So I think it was very strategic for those who are leading Columbus to throw out stand your ground, to talk to their base. There are people out and protesting, but what about my base? So let me get our people rallied out. Now they sent the information out this morning, again, which shortens the time frame for you to get the information out for people to be able to testify. So again, the bottom line is we have to develop better connections with one another as elected officials so that we can, in a very responsive way, communicate out to the people that we represent.
Everyone, I just message everyone. I do have to run off for my next meeting. I did want to follow up. Thank you so much, Ms. House, for the amazing insight. I just wanted to add too, as I said earlier, the media is biased. It can't be trusted. I think we need to focus on other ways we can bypass it and get straight to the people, whether that's any sort of social media, TikTok, I mean, anything, putting out regular YouTube videos. I mean, there's so many things we can do, and send text messages. I have an email newsletter I send out to my constituents, but we have to not rely on the media because, you know, the class warfare will continue. So if anyone else wants to reach out, I messaged my information in the chat. Have a beautiful evening, everyone. Thanks for including me. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you. And thank you so much, Ms. Howes. I do have a question, but I want to open it up for anyone else who has another question before I ended with my final question. Does anyone have any more questions for Ms. Howes? Hi, Lynn, please. Thank you, Ms. Rodeman. Thank you.
Hi, Ms. House. How are you? It's nice to see you. So I have a comment and a question. I was hoping that maybe you can talk a little bit about, we're talking about communication and clear communication with constituents when it comes to voting and census and even like accurate COVID information, right? And I was hoping that you could speak a little bit about if there's anything in the works to address the digital divide. I work as a community organizer in southeastern Cleveland in Slavic Village. And one of the issues that we really come across are elderly people getting correct information. And then those of us and those residents who don't have access to internet.
So, the legislature, good evening to you, Ms. Lynn. When we talk about the digital divide, the simplest way to put it. So there is some current legislation that's going through the General Assembly. I believe it's House Bill 13. Don't Kim. It's a lot of numbers, y'all. But there is legislation. It's broadband legislation that we are currently looking at, and that will help to further build out our system. This is one of the things that people got to understand. Well, why do we have a digital divide? Is that because there are certain companies that saw that it will not be necessarily, they don't get the return on their investment for building out certain places and communities. And so they just made the decision no, and then government allows them to do it. So that's what we have it. What can we do about it? I think this is where communities have to really be thoughtful of how we are getting our message out to people. The traditional channels that we have may not be suffice for what communities really need. When you having a clear understanding that people learn in different ways, for one, and I don't think we value that enough. People learn in very different ways, and a lot of times it's always in the print form, right? But what if you're a person that learns by the doing? How are we actively in the space of doing, helping people get information? It's the same thing in auditory and things of that nature. And especially as you talked about our aging, like where are the places, what are the services that our seniors get? Could we begin to give messages in the services that they get? Many times we know one thing that our elders get, they are many times going frequently to hospital settings, right? What could that experience look like for them in getting them the information that's relevant to them just in the one-offs? You know what I'm saying? So I really think it's an opportunity for us to really think about how we are delivering the information that is relevant and is real, and also allowing the people who are the consumers of it to ask them how, how would they like to get information. But I know we just need a lot more information, and I'm not going to get into all the design of the digital divide, but it is being addressed. But I think we too, and as I would say the last thing about the digital divide, I think we need to look at our consumer habits. I think it's a difference of like, if you have like, I'm gonna say 60% of people in a neighborhood who individually have the internet for example, what would it look like instead of one-offs of everybody paying a company, that those 60% take the ownership, right, to pay for everybody's bill? You see what I'm saying? Because they're getting one-offs, and it's more like a cooperative model. But I think we have enough to make sure everybody gets everything, but it's in the way that we have designed the system of individual versus a holistic model, where we can begin to sooner than later, not waiting for people to build it out. We can ensure that people have everything that they need, because we're paying enough that everybody can have what they need, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Tamika, you have one more question, and this will be our final question for this roundtable. We can always come back to this during our next roundtable, but I want to kind of keep moving here. So Tamika, I'll make this be the last question. I'll save my question for last.
It's not even a question. It's just a statement. I just thought maybe if they took the route of the idea of the example of the 60 people paying for the rest of the people in the community, maybe every person that has internet access, if one person bought internet access, they could account for how many elderly are in the community. And it's kind of like adopt a grandparent kind of thing, adopt an elderly person in your community. So if one person pays for internet, that elderly family also gets internet in their community. That's another idea.
Good. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much, everybody. So this is our format here for this symposium. I hope everybody's received something so far, and they are being made more aware about the things that Ms. Howes is talking about, the different legislation we have, the different forms of government. One thing that I did want to add on here is we also have a community that doesn't believe in the political system. So it's just something that I want to kind of think about, and maybe we can discuss it a little bit more in our next roundtable. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward, and I would like to go ahead and make sure Ms. Hall is ready to go ahead and show us the making of the public service announcement that our Hasani Garden Camps have made, or excuse me, our Hasani Garden Camp has made for this 2020 year from the pandemic. Ms. Hall, are you ready?
Yes, this is a wonderful symposium. I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone again for coming. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope it's very edifying. I wanted to speak a little bit about the making of the public service announcement. This is funny because it takes me back to our Christmas program that we had back in December, Christmas Gifts from Lolo. There were items that were donated to our organization for the Christmas program. But in addition to that, there was a big bag of pillowcases that were donated. And I was trying to give the pillowcases away to people in the community, but I don't think anyone had an interest in taking the pillowcases. So something in the back of my mind told me to keep those pillowcases. And guess what? I did. So as we had the unfortunate incident of the pandemic, I wanted to do something to make a difference, but I just didn't know exactly how we as an organization would make a difference without compromising our health and the health of others. So I thought about safety, and I said to myself, we can make masks. We could help people by making masks to make sure that people are safe, because everybody needs a mask. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're onto something. So I had so many things I wanted to do, and I wanted to sew the mask, but unfortunately, the sewing machine didn't have a cord. So I got a wonderful call from this guy named Dan over at Cuyahoga Arts and Culture Foundation. And he called to check on me. And it was a wellness check-in. It really meant something to me in my heart because I'm so used to being the person that calls and checks on everyone else and sees how they're doing. He said, I was just calling to see how you were doing. And did you need anything? I'm like, oh my gosh, well, thank you. I said, well, yeah, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do this, but my sewing machine doesn't have a cord. So he said, you know what, I'm going to put you in touch with the marketplace, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, thank you. So after that, I went on the virtual marketplace held with Neighbor Up, and I spoke with LJ, and LJ introduced me to a wonderful woman by the name of Erin Rando, who is out of the Collinwood area. And so Erin makes masks as well. So what she was able to do is help make our dreams become a reality by helping us make the masks through the Hasani Garden Camp, which I've been hosting now for 9 years. But we've never done it virtually. We are doing virtual Hasani Garden Camp. And we had a workshop, and Erin came on the line and she spoke with the kids, and she said she would love to help us out. So basically what she did was she showed us how to cut the fabric out, how to treat the fabric, so forth and so on. And then we passed the fabric on to Erin, and she made the mask. And she made the mask for our public service announcement. And it's funny because after she made the mask and I made the flyer, I wanted to do something even more. My background is the performing arts, so I decided, I'm going to write a script, and that's what I did. So we wrote a script, and about 33 children that are a part of the Hasani Garden Camp had the opportunity to come together. Some were here locally in Cleveland, some nationally in California and New York, and they had the opportunity to participate in this public service announcement. So what we're going to do at this time is we're going to premiere the Everybody Needs a Mask public service announcement written by myself, Chinitha Hall, and sponsored by the Hasani Garden Camp Kids, as well as Neighborhood Leadership Development Program, Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, and Neighbor Up. I want to thank everyone for their participation and believing in this dream of wanting to help people out. During this time, so many people are doing things for selfish reasons, but for us to come together locally, nationally, and globally as a community, as one, and unite, this is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So this is from my heart, and this is from the children at the Hasani Garden Camp. Please stand by.
During this critical time
of pandemic crisis
we are all facing,
locally, nationally, globally,
it is important
that we all do what we can
to be safe
within our own communities.
One way to do this
is to wear a mask. Social distancing is great,
but everybody needs a mask.
As our country moves forward,
businesses are reopening,
and people are going back to work and school.
The Hasani Garden Camp
is encouraging everyone to wear your mask.
When we all wear a mask
in the communities in which we live,
we express love for ourselves
and others by protecting one another.
I protect you, and you protect me.
Not enough for me to wear my mask.
You need to wear yours too.
Your life depends on it. My life depends on it.
Our lives depend on it. We need you to live.
Our future depends on it.
Let's unite and fight for our lives.
Wear your mask.
Wear your mask.
Everybody needs to wear a mask.
Join the movement.
Spread the word.
Donate, volunteer, and support.
Okay. If you guys can all give our children a round of applause, I know that we are experiencing technical difficulties. We are doing the best we can, but I do want to let everybody know we're going to be posting this on the live feed. But I first want to thank our children for participating in this monumental public service announcement. It is the first ever for Hasani Management, Inc. I think it was beautifully written. Thank goodness we can read, and that we need to give our kids a great round of applause. They are involved in civic involvement. They are participating in change, which is what Ms. House talked about. And we need to continue to inspire our youth to continue to do the same. Everybody needs to wear a mask, and we need to be conscious of that. This is a symposium about COVID-19 and the urgency of safety. So I'm so thankful, Chanitha, that you wrote this for our children and that you were able to get all of these children to participate. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our fun part of our symposium. And we're now going to introduce a few of the children that participated in this. Just so you all know, all of the children that participated in this are junior farmers. They are also global ambassadors, and I'm very happy to introduce a few of those children who are here with us today. Our first junior farmer and global ambassador is Mr. Malik Aziz. And if you can please show your camera, Malik, so we can speak to you for a moment.
I just thought it was a great video. Good job, you guys.
Okay, Mr. Malik Aziz, this is our first junior farmer and global ambassador. If you can please introduce yourself, and thank you so much.
Hi guys, my name is Malik Aziz. I'm 17 years old, and I'm a global ambassador and junior farmer.
And how long have you been with the Hasani Garden Camp?
I've been a part of the Hasani Garden Camp for 9 years, an original Hasani Garden Camp Kid.
Okay, and what do you enjoy most about it?
What I enjoy most about it is how we can just come together and everybody can just be a family. And we just express ourselves the way that we feel is and that makes us comfortable.
Right. So it provides you a safe space to be yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
That's great. What would you like to see change possibly about it? Is with the pandemic and now us understanding that there's so much civil unrest right now going on in the country behind social injustices, what exactly would you like to change about the camp since you're an original member?
To be honest with you, I would like to change the fact that having that everybody make sure everybody wears their mask. If you don't wear your mask, it's not going to be good.
Right, right. Can cause harm to yourself or to others. That's very important to remember. Thank you so much, Malik, for your contribution. Our next junior farmer and global ambassador is Miss Constant Clark. Constant, can you unmute your mic?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Great, thank you. Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Constant Clark. I'm 16 years old. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a junior farmer and global ambassador. I have been at Hasani Garden Camp for 8 years now. What I love most about Hasani Garden Camp is that we come together as a family to make masks for other people that are in need.
Okay, and how do you think that your masks are going to change the community? Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been seeing different in the community? And how safety is possibly more important now with the community. So in addition to wearing a mask, what do you think that you've been seeing as far as changes in your community?
I see people wear masks. They bring like sanitizer with them after they touch everything, or they stay 6 feet away if they got the little 6 feet spot before you get in line type thing. Oh, and my mom gave me another question.
Sure, please tell us what your thoughts are.
How safe my community is that we have a recreation centers where you can play multiple activities. Our community is a historical site that people from everywhere come and visit throughout the years at Lee Park, where I stay at. Next to the park we have a water park, a trail for walking or running baseball fields, and a basketball area where youth can play and hang out at. So last week, we had the Walk and Huff community where Councilman Bashir Jones and police that supported us, that we talked and people shared their stories about police brutality with their families who have been hurt or died, and that they have a voice and they want their story to be heard and want justice. And it's mostly like the hate you give for Khalil died when they want justice.
Right, right. Well, that was a very powerful movement, and that's great that you guys were involved in that. Thank you so much for sharing with us about Leeds Park.
Wait, I also have a badge too.
Sure.
Okay. So my badge said, I can't breathe. Yeah, that's a badge.
And that's the badge you have on. Thank you. Being a part of the movement and expressing that. So if we can move on to Miss Dalia Walker. Hi, Dalia. How are you?
Good.
Good. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And thank you for participating in the public service announcement.
Hi, I'm Dalia Walker. I am 11 years old. I am a junior farmer and a global ambassador. I've been a part of the Hasani Garden Camp for 6 years.
What do you love most about the camp?
We do fun things.
Like, I've heard something about the food. I'm in Los Angeles, but I've heard that the food is delicious. Everything is natural and you guys grow it.
Yes.
That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about how you felt after you found out about the pandemic and that the pandemic was going to close your school? Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that made you feel and why you got involved?
I felt kind of, I wasn't excited about that because you're not allowed to be near your friends.
Right. Right. Are you missing your friends? Yes. Are you missing your teachers?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I know that social interaction, we're all missing it. So we're going to be talking about how we can connect to our friends and our family and ways that you can do that with the pandemic in our next segment. So thank you so much, Ms. Dalia Walker. We appreciate your service and commitment. If we can have Mr. Richard Clark. Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Great. Thank you so much for your involvement in the public service announcement. We really appreciate it. And we love your civic involvement and want to understand more about you. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hello. My name is Richard Clark. I'm 17 years old. I've been a part of the Hasani Garden Camp for about 8 years now. I'm a junior farmer and global ambassador. And one thing the Hasani Garden Camp has taught and helped me with is making like the better option and eating the better choice. Especially with me playing sports, has really helped me to make sure I'm eating nutritious things and eating thing that's best for you to make sure I can keep going, getting stronger and healthier. One of my favorite memories at the Hasani Garden Camp is when we will learn how to do Tai Chi and yoga. I think Tai Chi really gave me opportunity to rest and learn my different states of mind and learn really who I am myself. And I think yoga gave me the opportunity to stretch different muscles in my body that might have been hurting that I didn't learn how to stretch before. So this are the things I learned at the Hasani Garden Camp.
Right, right. Well, that's very important that you are involved in physical activity. I understand that you are involved in sports at school and it has picked up again. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you guys are practicing safety with sports right now?
Yeah, so as of right now, we've been doing workouts on a Zoom call. So basically we'll have an athletic trainer tell us what we're supposed to do over the call. And everybody will be working out on a Zoom call. And just as of recently, they just had like a field or practice meeting where like everybody was 6 feet away from each other. along with like coaches having masks on and like hand sanitizer at literally every station,
right,
to make sure no one caught the virus and keep everyone safe.
Right. It's a different way of playing sports, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is. There's some things that I'm sure you miss, but there's also a lot of safety that's involved there. Thank you so much for joining and for sharing with us. For those parents who don't have the opportunity to put their children back in sports, this kind of gives us a little bit of a preview of what things are being done with safety right now to have our children to actively participate in something that allows them to still be able to socially connect with their friends and their peers. So thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, then our next junior farmer and global ambassador is Mr. Darius Walker.
Hi.
Darius, I apologize for calling you guys out of order, but thank you. Hi.
Hi.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Darius. I'm 9 years old. I have been in Hasani Garden Camp for 6 years. I'm a junior farmer ambassador.
And you've been with the camp for 6 years?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, can you tell us what you love about it?
That we get to help people and have fun with the food and eat.
That's awesome. Can you tell us one thing that you've noticed that's different with respect to safety or school, what you may miss about school, or things that you know that you're going to be doing differently outside of wearing your mask?
That you don't get to hang out with your friends a lot because of the season a lot. And because you have to do online school.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I know that is a challenge that a lot of students are facing. And again, we're going to talk about that a little bit under our priority, the urgency of education enrichment. We'll also be talking about a bit about that in our next segment about the urgency of optimal health, because it is important that we allow our children to have that social connection, very similar to what we're doing today, because our children are able to see each other and be able to talk about what they've put together with the public service announcement. So I'm going to introduce our next junior farmer and global ambassador, and that is Miss Danielle Walker.
Hi, my name is Danielle Walker. I am 8 years old. I've been in the Hasani Garden Camp for 6 years. I am a junior farmer and a globally ambassador.
Okay. And can you tell us what you like most about the camp?
That we get to play games, fun games.
Right.
And we get to eat fun food and make projects.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing outside of the mask to practice safety, or what you're talking to your friends about? Are you connecting with your friends at all? Can you tell me about what you miss about school? Maybe your friends outside of your friends?
Hugging my friends and playing with them.
Do you miss your teachers too?
Yes.
Why? Why do you miss your friends and your teachers? Why?
Because normally I'm at school with them, making cards and playing games with them.
Right. I think we had also talked about that they help you a bit with different things too, right?
Yes.
Right. So it becomes a community where everyone is helping one another, which is what we want to teach our children. I believe Ms. Continenza, Ms. House talked about that as well. Thank you so much, Ms. Danielle, for sharing that with us. I appreciate it. And now, thank you. And now for our final junior farmer and global ambassador, Mr. Yair Payton. Hi.
Hi, my name is Yair Payton. I'm 6 years old, and I live in Los Angeles, California. I'm a Hasani Global Ambassador.
What would you like to share with your friends about things that you can do to stay safe?
Wash your hands, drink water, eat healthy.
Right, someone spoke about that. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. May I ask how old you are again?
6.
Wow. Well, this is one thing that's awesome about the garden camp is that we have children in here that start as young as 5 and end at 18. So that's our age range. So we're covering a wide vast of different thoughts and things like that. I think that was talked about as well. Children that live in different cities. So we're all participating in this to make sure that we make this a global effort as far as making sure that we all take and participate in civic action. Without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next panelist who's going to be speaking about the urgency of education enrichment, Ms. Lisa Stepney, who's the educational consultant and founder of Affirmations Learning Institute.
Wonderful. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate Ms. Hall and yourself taking a look at education today. What I'd like to do is just tell you a little bit about myself first. I am a school psychologist working in the Cleveland area, and I provide assessments, counseling, also professional development to teachers. I also teach high school students for an area college here in the area of psychology. So every day I'm in contact with our babies, and just every day, educating children is a challenge, for various reasons. And so now that we have the COVID-19, a lot of parents are wondering how can they still have their child's needs met. And it has been very challenging. And so on the forefront, what we're trying to do, just statewide as well as federally, is try to provide alternative ways to educate our students. And so some teachers are using online learning, some teachers are doing remote learning, some teachers are just calling and checking on the students to make sure that they're doing their work. I've seen a little bit of everything. But what I like is that it is definitely a collaborative effort of families, teachers, and students. And so as it pertains to administration, many students are receiving online education. And what I like to say to parents, because one of the questions that we had was, should my child still be receiving special education services at this time? And the answer is yes. And so each school is supposed to be offering something. Number one, they're asking if a certain activity is essential. Number two, they're asking, can it be done virtually? And if it can't be done virtually, then they're taking a look at, is it possible we can have some contact with the student, but still being very cautious and following the health guidelines. And so I'm a school psychologist. I have tested children during this time. We've worn our mask. We've stayed a distance to each other because we want to make sure that they have those services when they return to school in the fall. The second thing I've come upon is that a lot of parents don't have computers. And when some of the previous speakers were talking about poverty and how some families don't have internet service and some families don't have Chromebooks, this is a problem here in the Cleveland area. Not all children who live here have a Chromebook at home. All school districts have not provided students with those Chromebooks. And so what I've suggested to all parents is to at least arrange a weekly appointment with your child's teacher. Now, when it comes to special education services, your child should still be receiving specially designed instruction. They should still be receiving accommodations and instruction that is based upon their specific grade level or their specific ability. And so I don't want any parent to think you are totally responsible for educating your child. Your child has special needs, And it is still a collaborative effort to try to do that the best we can. Another thing that comes up is a lot of the students receive speech and language therapy or occupational therapy, mental health services, and a lot of agencies are choosing to provide online, just like we're doing here at Zoom, doing testing, doing counseling sessions. They're trying very hard to keep that contact with the students. And so those are just a couple of things that are going on now. But what I would suggest is that each parent make contact with their school, because your school has a newsletter. They can provide you with an email address. A lot of schools have monthly meetings. They're getting very creative. I saw the other morning, one school district was literally dropping off packets of work for students door to door in the community. So I don't want parents to think that they're all alone. And then with the older students, I know parents, I know your child doesn't get up till 2 o'clock. I know they don't get up till maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But it's very important to have some type of schedule and to have some type of consistency. I'll call a student at 12 o'clock and she says, "Oh, I don't think I should wake him." "Oh, yes, you should." It's 12 o'clock.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank Miss Lisa Stepney, for helping us to understand what's available for our children through the educational system right now, and us being persistent as parents and as parental guardians to make sure that we are not losing the substance of our education right now due to distance or remote learning. Thank you so much, Ms. Stepney, for sharing this information. Okay, our next panelist is going to be Mr. Dan McLaughlin. He's going to speak about the urgency of education enrichment pertaining to what it is that he does. He's a grant program manager at Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. And thank you, Mr. McLaughlin, for being patient and patiently waiting to present your piece about the urgency of education enrichment.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I will be brief. As you mentioned, my current role is as a grant program manager at Cuyahoga Arts and Culture, but my background before that is in education, is in teaching, secondary teaching, high school and middle school, and then also in adult education, working with GED, high school equivalency programs, and adult basic education programs. What I want to talk about quickly is education and educational attainment and how they matter more now than ever before. And when I say the word education, I'm going to touch on something that's already been spoken about here, but it means more than what we learn in school or more than what we just take a test on. What I think is critical now is education as a means of becoming a critical consumer of information. Again, that's something that we kind of touched on earlier, but it means understanding and evaluating the quickly changing guidance that we see coming on public health so that we can make informed decisions and we can keep ourselves safe. And I just want to say also, I'm grateful to Chinitha, to Hasani Management, to the young people here who put together the mask campaign for helping to sort through a lot of that noise, a lot of that misinformation to get that core message out there, and that wearing a mask is an act of love. It's an act of respect for others and for your community. One of the things we've talked about in terms is again, being a critical consumer of information. And there was a question that came up on how exactly do we do that? And I just wanted to take a moment to point out a few different ways to do that, a few different strategies that young people are learning in the schools. There's Common Core standards that were rolled out a few years ago that really have this being a critical consumer of information at their root, and across all age levels, across all subject areas. Some of the things that people can do and need to keep doing is finding corroborating sources, different corroborating sources. It's easy sometimes for us to share the same article on social media a million times in a row, but if it's false, it just starts to look like it's more and more true, right? Only one person said it, but we've shared it a million times. And we also need to recognize bias, including our own, which is really hard to do sometimes, to acknowledge that we do have a bias and to break through those biases. So again, keep those skills in mind, especially as news changes quick. We've seen things like conspiracy theories pop up around safety, public safety of this pandemic of COVID-19. And remember also that the loudest voices are not always the soundest voices. The loudest voices are not always the soundest voices. Keep that in mind. It also means taking time to learn our history, which we've talked a little bit about here, and how that applies today into this moment now when we have this energy to move our society forward, and at the ballot box in November coming up, at the local, at the state, and the federal levels, right? So there's real momentum. We just need to make sure that we could be critical consumers of information and keep that momentum moving forward. Talk briefly about educational attainment too, because that's something a little bit different. I mentioned that I had done GED classes, adult basic education. I'd worked with a lot of adults who were getting back on track with their own education. And so what I can say to parents, to young people who are wondering about what happened to this most recent school year and what their next school year might be looking like, high school completion and a high school diploma is still the most valuable degree that a person can earn. In fact, in terms of dollars, that translates to up to $1 million of additional income over the course of your lifetime. If you have a high school diploma or you don't have a high school diploma. So that educational attainment is still something that's absolutely critical. A college degree opens up more doors. And something that I'm thinking about, something I'm going to be keeping an eye on over the next year or two is this work from home situation. I have been working from home since March, and I'm curious to see what that does in terms of making more opportunities available to places like Cleveland, Ohio, which is not San Jose or San Francisco or New York City or one of these big hubs that has a lot of jobs. Are we suddenly able to compete because we have, if we have digital access, if we have the ability to connect like a global symposium from my bedroom? So that's something I think we all need to keep an eye on. But remember that it's that educational attainment that makes you competitive, that keeps you competitive. And as I come up on my time, I want to just say that, again, education goes beyond that classroom learning. It also includes things like art and music, creative writing, dance, physical activity. We heard about sports coming back and finding ways to do sports safely. Gardening, which is something I know is core to so many of the young people here. I need to go out and water my community garden bed as soon as I can because it's been hot and getting hotter tomorrow. And just being in touch with nature. All of these things are essential forms of expression, and they're more essential now than they ever have been because they're what provide that social connection and that opportunity for young people to explore themselves, explore their creativity, and provide an outlet in what is a traumatic world. And there's trauma within ourselves and all around us. So finding ways to have that outlet, those schools, those after school programs that are finding ways to come back are essential. But you don't always need a program, right? You don't need to necessarily sign up for something. There's things that you can do. Young people, I would encourage you just to take pictures with the phone, right? It's photography, it's art, it's expression. Journal, write stories. Families, find resources that are online and set aside time, as we were saying earlier, set aside that time to do some type of creativity because it's something that we all need right now. And so I'll leave it right there and I'll pass it back to you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that and you being conscious of time. I'm going to keep moving, but we can ask any further questions that we may have for Mr. McLaughlin inside of the chat box. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next panelist, who is Ms. Dana Perkins. She's the founder of Aja, Principled Living and Good Company. Welcome, Ms. Perkins.
Hi, how are you? I'm glad to be here, a part of the symposium. And Tanitha, thank you so much for the invitation. And I'm glad to see some of the things that you're doing with Hasani. Also glad to see so many young people you have here. I'm so impressed that they are here and listening and participating with this transitional symposium, because it is a lot of adult conversation, but it's also a lot of things that they have contributed and taken part with. So glad to see this and be a part of that. So just to give a little input about who I am and what I do, my organization is Aja Principal Living Good Company. My name is Dana Perkins, and I'm an educator, licensed educator for elementary school, as well as a licensed principal. And right now what I'm doing is the operation of the nonprofit is primarily working with online education. So I was listening to Dan saying, how can we do some more things online? Well, now it seems like things have opened up as a necessity for what it is that I do. And that is to provide educational resource for families and specifically students. So in a few moments, I'm going to share with you my website, and it allows parents to interact and to get information, as well as it allows resources for educators. So there are two parts of what it is that I primarily do in education. The first part is, as mentioned, I do a little bit of tutoring, teaching students, and that's preparing them for standardized tests, preparing them for college placement in parochial schools and private schools. And that's a great opportunity. A lot of times, if there are some schools that are failing, students are able to be admitted into other schools, but they do have their own placement tests. And I do prepare students for that test. So that's the sometimes parent-driven program that I do, but also another parent-driven program I have is where parents are looking for a way to provide access to resources for their students. Maybe they have begun to fall behind or need additional support. And so I do help with both of those on both spectrums. We do assessments of students based upon where they would stand in both of those test areas, just to see where we would be able to provide the best help in the shortest period of time. And I know that a lot of times, I was listening to Lisa, she was saying how there's a lack of resources available. A lot of districts, some districts are not providing students with all the resources to be part while they're hunkered in place at home. So one of the things that I do is to help people to use different modalities to be able to access their resources and provide that education for teachers as well as students. So they can access our classes on any smart device, whether it's a tablet or a phone or a computer, laptop, desktop, however. And the interaction of those modalities will help them to still be able to get the education from my end, and also just to keep parents engaged. We have different things that we can do just to keep them aware of other things that they can do with their phones besides like the social media things that they may be most aware of. And that's on the student side. And on the parent or teacher side, we do offer professional development. So a licensed educator in Ohio is able to get professional development credits, whether they can take it back to their assigned district or we can provide those as well. So those are just some of the things that I do and that I offer. And again, I want to commend all the students who were sitting back and just listening. I have a student who's been on the call for a little bit, and I have two international students that I wanted to highlight because our first impression is that this was all about the global pandemic, and kids do have a lot to say with that. And so I had two students who will represent international students that I currently service. One is from near Toronto, Canada, and the other one, he's in a different time zone. So he just submitted a video, and he's from Lagos, Nigeria. They both wanted to give their input on things that they've been able to do, to just in response to the pandemic, if they've been able to still be in contact with their friends. Maybe they've done some social projects for that. And so I'd like to see if Ria could come on. Ria, can you unmute? Ria is from near Toronto, Canada. Ria, can you unmute your video and your mic and just say hello to us?
Hello.
All right, so this is Ria, and I'm so glad to be able to see what she does in the pandemic. She's able to. Ria, do you feel comfortable telling us a couple things that you do to keep yourself busy during the pandemic, or do you want me to play your video?
Can we play the video?
Sure, I can play the video. So she's a little shy because she sees all these adults on here, but if you ever become unshy during this conversation, it'll be great just to hear from you because she's got some great projects that she's done. Let me see if I can share screen and see some of the videos, some of the things that she's done here. So basically, we've been talking about the response of youth in the pandemic, and Ria decided she wanted to participate. And I just want to know more about who you are and and just how this pandemic has affected you. But just in a few minutes, I'm going to re-edit this. I wanted to introduce who she is. Ria is one of my students. I basically tutor students, and she's a student who's an international student. She's actually located in Canada. We've got some students that'll be on also from different parts of the world, like in Africa, and students that are right in the United States as well. So we've got a view of students and how they are responding to the pandemic from various parts of the world. And Ria wants to tell a little bit about her experience by starting with her name, age, grade in school, and things she wants to be when she grows up. So go ahead, Ria. Tell us about yourself.
My name is Ria Armagan. I am 10 years old and I am in 5th grade at the Bishop Strachan School. Is going to be an ophthalmologist, and I like writing and reading books.
Okay, very good. You like writing. When you say writing, what does that mean?
Riding and jumping horses.
Oh, very good. So you're a show horse rider, basically.
Yes.
Very cool. And so we were talking a little bit about the pandemic and its effects on your everyday life. How has the pandemic affected your everyday life?
Pandemic has affected my everyday life so that I cannot go to school. I cannot socially interact with my grandparents. I cannot socially interact with my friends as I usually would at school, and many other things.
Right. So I know that it's been quite an adjustment. And not only just socially interact and not be able to go to school, also we are asked to wear masks. How do you feel about that? Do you think that the masks, what is your impression of having to wear a mask when you're close to other people you don't know?
I think that it's a good idea to wear masks because it protects yourself and others if you or that other person has COVID, because it's possible.
Very true. Very true. So I was telling you a story right before we started the video that there are some students here who've started working on some things to help even with the mask process. What things have you done and thoughts about the need to wear a mask as a person like you are?
I have sketched outlines for the masks, but I haven't had a chance to make them with all my schoolwork, and I don't have a sewing machine, so it would take a long time for me to make the masks.
Okay, I understand. So you've made some designs for masks, but you haven't been able to make any. But I know you like unicorns a lot. I'm curious if you have any pictures of unicorns that you've made close by.
I have them on the 3rd floor. I specifically like wolves, but I do like unicorns as well. I can go upstairs and get them.
That's okay. We can probably do that at another time. I was wondering if you had a design of some sort. I know
I'm in the library. I don't really
have it close by. That's okay. That's all right. So let's go on and just talk a little bit about some things that maybe have gotten better for you during the pandemic. A lot of times we think about things as an abrupt change. We don't always think about things that could have gotten better.
Well, one main thing is that before my parents' work started getting busier, they are ophthalmologists, eye doctors, and my mom specifically would be at home a lot more, and that made me really happy because usually I wouldn't get to see them for the whole day except at night.
Right, so it made families have to stay home more. So from a kid's perspective, you get a chance to do, or maybe just see your parents a little bit more. That sounds about right. And I've had a student who said they were making cookies the first week, just finding some things that they could do.
I was making cupcakes and doing some algebra stuff with my dad.
Ria, I was wondering if you would like to just tell us what types of things you do just to stay busy. Is that okay?
Okay. I've been drawing a lot and making some sketches of masks that I could create. This is the first one that I made. It's not very detailed.
What about the design for the mask? Because kids love designs. Have you made some designs that you'd like to share?
I could only find the first one that I made. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see that. Rhea absolutely loves unicorns, and she's a fantastic artist. So I really wish she had some of those.
Oh. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it, of course. Very good. Very good. And every time we meet, she's got some amazing drawings. So that's some of the things she does. How about family time? What are some things you're doing because of the pandemic that have either increased family time or changed what that looks like?
I've been swimming with my parents in our pool and doing more activities together, which usually wouldn't be very easy because my parents get home very late. So I wouldn't be able to do anything with them. I would already be asleep or like finishing my homework. So I wouldn't be able to do anything with them.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love talking to the kids about how this is changing their life. And some of them are really happy to have time with parents. But I just wanted to just sort of highlight one more thing from you as far as like interacting with your friends. And then I wanted to go on and focus on the other student that we have that's in Nigeria. So what do you do? How do you socialize with your friends right now?
Right now, I socialize with my friends by group chatting with them and having weekly meetings on Google Meets to like say hi and like see how everyone is right now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So again, there are some things that have been quite a bit of an adjustment for a lot of students, but being able to have access to knowing how to interact with those things are some things that I do, and trying to expose students to, different media, whether they are mainly operating from a smartphone, and they can, some of these things, believe it or not, we can do all in different places. So before we share the video about the student from Nigeria, I wanted to touch on something about equity in education. And I think that's a really good resource, really good conversation. ESA, which is a child of No Child Left Behind, basically Every Student Succeeds Act, talked about the fact that every student should have access to resources. And right now, as I mentioned, sometimes the access or perception of access really is seeming differentiated. And so what I like to do is just say that what I do is talk to parents, talk to them about resources. So talking to them about what resources are available, how to access those resources is what we would do. Also, in terms of preparing students for standardized tests, it's very common that parents are able to access what is available, and they keep going until the scores go up if they can afford that preparation, whereas a lot of students don't have that. And so what we do is try to give them that exposure. And also, I believe that as things are beginning to change in terms of testing, the testing tools are becoming more sensitive. It would be great if Lisa could talk more on that, because she does a lot of wide ranges of testing in general. But in general, the students that I work with, I do prepare them from beginning to end and prepare them based upon their areas of weakness so that they'll be able to, improve their understanding of content. As long as there is great content accessibility and it's equal, that is the goal of ESA, or that is the goal of Every Child Succeeds Act, to make sure that they understand the at least basic core materials. So hopefully, if there are any other questions on it, I'd love to be able to answer some. I wanted to also share a video, or Chinese, if you're able to share the video from Efe, who is located in Nigeria. His parents are excited to see his portion too. So if you have that.
Hi there, Efe. This is Dana. And just wanted to talk to you about the Pandemic Symposium a little bit. I know you said that you were interested in talking about your experience of how this pandemic has affected you. And so just if you can tell us your name, your grade in school, how old you are, and things you want to become.
Okay, so I'm in 7th grade. I live in Nigeria. I don't know what I want to be.
You don't know your career, okay? But you are trying to go to a private school next year, right?
Yes.
So that's why we study it, so that you can go to a private school next year. What is it that has affected you by this pandemic? How has it changed your life, maybe with school or other things like that?
Oh yeah, school. Now I'm doing online schools. I haven't been outside that much. I've only gone outside like 2 times. But those 2 times, I left my car only once, and I wore a face mask when I went out.
Wow, that's quite an adjustment in life. Well, hopefully we've got some kids here who are going to be helping with changing the world, and you are one of them in terms of how we can be leaders. And we'll do that in our next session, okay? All right, see you soon. Bye.
Okay, so that was a little bit of our interview. We had a little bit more, but basically that was his take on how it's changed him. And I think that they are just fascinated at both the students that I have here with the idea that students were active in making masks or you designing masks and promoting them. So again, thank you so much for this invitation, Shanita and Hasani Hasani Garden Camp. Also, I apologize. I wanted to share if there are any parents who are available, who are interested in what it is that we do. I wanted to show you our webpage, and this will be very, very quick. Basically, we have a link here. My website I'm going to put into the chat is Aja Principal Living Good Company, and we have students that are current students that can access our page just by joining here. You can go ahead and go to our Zoom. And then we have mainly one-on-one sessions. And then after that, we also have students. If you want to become a student, that information is also here under future students. So those are some of the resources that we have. And then also, as I mentioned, we offer professional developments for educators. And there is a way for educators, if they were interested in joining in and finding out how they can make their online resources more accessible to students. We do workshops for CEUs on that. And I'm going to put that information in chat.
Thank you so much, Dana. That is awesome that you're able to do this with these children. Round of applause. And it's very forward thinking for the time that we're in now. It encompasses something that Dan said. I'm sorry, I'm calling first names, but Dan and Lisa both said. What you're doing right now encompasses everything that a psychologist and actually someone who has been working with other children to learn to develop their artwork and things like that you're doing. So you're forward thinking, you're already a step ahead. And I want to congratulate you for having the capability to be able to think a step ahead by providing this service to us. I think that's phenomenal. So I wanted to tell you, thank you very much for your time and allowing us to see these children that are across the globe that are experiencing this challenge differently, and they have identified solutions that can help them so they can continue to understand their new normal at this time. So I want to tell you thank you for that. And I want to tell the panel that has handled the education enrichment, thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing and providing us ideas as parents. Okay, moving right along to our next panel.
And now we will take a moment to catch up with Hasani Management Inc.'s president, CEO, and founder, Ms. Chinitha Hall, who is speaking with our panelist regarding the urgency of optimum health. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Ivanka Hall, who is the executive director of the Northeast Ohio Black Health Coalition.
I guess what I should start off saying is what the Northeast Ohio Black Health Coalition is. So the Northeast Ohio Black Health Coalition is the first coalition in the state of Ohio to focus exclusively on African-American disparities in education, employment, housing, and health. And so we do that by working to educate, advocate for, and empower the community. And so we have a number of professionals and community members that work with the organizations They're volunteers, and they help us to do the programs that we do. We reach about 8,000 people in a normal year. This is COVID. This is a COVID year, so our numbers are a little bit different for this year. And so for us, one of the things that we've been talking about around COVID-19, and particularly when we're talking about disparities, like COVID-19, the racial justice pieces are all converging at one time in a community that was already impacted by racism. And so when we look at COVID-19 and the impact that it's had on the community, we have to look at poverty and racism. And so we have all those things converging, and we have communities that have comorbidities because of poverty and racism. And so when I'm talking about comorbidities, it is we have people who have hypertension, we have people who have diabetes, we have people who have heart disease. And a lot of African Americans don't know it. So they may have different kind of ailments and not even realize that anything's going on. When we talk about heart disease, a lot of people have hypertension and don't even know it because they've never had it checked. And so when you look at COVID-19 in the African American community, what you see is our ages are lower than the general population that gets it, because a lot of younger African Americans have illnesses that have never been diagnosed yet. I was actually watching the news the other day, and there was a young woman who was 26 years old who passed away from COVID-19. And so you look at it and say, she's African American woman. She looks relatively healthy. She's 26 years old. Why her? And so we have to talk about all of these things that are going on in the African American community around health, around access. The other thing that COVID-19 has shed a light on for us is food access for our community. How readily available is healthy food in your neighborhood? And I'm not talking about going to the corner store and getting Cheetos. I'm talking about going to the grocery store and actually being able to shop and get the things that you need. And not just get the things that you need, but get the things that you need for a sustainable amount of time. Like, can you go buy enough food for a day, or can you buy enough food for a month? And so what we've seen is white communities are able to go buy things long term. So they're the Costco shoppers. They're the Sam's Club shoppers. They're buying things in bulk. And so when we're talking about people who are poor, you're buying things just enough to get you what this $20 is going to get you. So if the $20 is going to get you through the day, then you'll worry about tomorrow. And so that takes me to my other point around African Americans and COVID-19. Is this wearing a mask thing? And so if you're constantly exposed and you're constantly out trying to get the provisions that you need in order for you to feed your family, then is a mask a provision? So in a household who can afford it, you can go buy a ton of masks. But when you're talking about a poor community in the local Walgreens, masks cost $35 for 50 in a box. So $35 is a lot of money when you're poor. So do I spend $35 to buy masks in order for my family not to be impacted by this virus? Or do I spend $35 for food? And we know the answer to that question is that we spend the $35 for food. And so a lot of times when we see African Americans in the community that don't have on masks, it's not that they don't want to wear masks, it's that they can't afford a mask. And so I think that it's so important for community organizations and churches to kind of take up that cause. So I know that my organization will be passing out masks. The other thing that we stepped in to do during this time is around food insecurity. So we have people who have children who may have disabilities, or they may have disabilities. And so all of a sudden it was, okay, how will people who have disabilities and no transportation get to food? And how do we keep them safe? Because if you have a parent that has disability, or you have a child that has disabilities, then their likelihood of getting COVID-19 and dying is even higher than anyone else. So when we talk about stay at home, for those communities, it's even more imperative that we keep them at home. So my organization using a credit card, sought to get provisions for families and take food to them. So we have been delivering food to families for the last 12 weeks. We deliver them, like now we deliver enough for a month. But before then, and so I have a small, I wish you could see the scope of my room. It's not full now, but I have a small warehouse that I have basically turned my home into. My dining room is a whole room filled with snacks. My family room has peanut butter and jelly and cereal and oatmeal, all of those things that we can need for breakfast and lunch. My refrigerator and freezer now has like cheese sticks, and we buy deli meat. All of the things that people need, that children need, that they can make them a sandwich and still get the proper things they need. Because we have a school system that right now through COVID-19 that has only reached about less than 10% of our students. So when we're talking about only 10% of the students that are getting fed, what happens to them educationally? How are their thought processes? We know that we cannot learn on an empty stomach. So we really have to think about what's going to go on with our babies when we're talking about what happens to them in the fall. Like, I don't think that school is going to be able to start. You cannot social distance kids. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but, you can say, look, I want you to go sit over there. And 2 seconds later, you turn around and they're back together again. And so the washing your hands is vitally important. It's important to our communities. Washing your hands for at least 20 seconds, making sure that you have hand sanitizer. Like, I have hand sanitizer when you walk in my house, there's hand sanitizer there. And so when people come in, there's hand sanitizer. Making sure that you have hand sanitizer, making sure that you're washing the doorknobs, the outside doorknobs, the inside doorknobs, your bathroom doorknobs, inside and out, the refrigerator handles, things that people kind of touch a lot more than we think they do. Making sure that you're wiping those things down. Because, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people come in from outside with groceries and they don't wash their hands before they put their groceries up. Yeah. They immediately open up the refrigerator. And so that's something that, it was quick and easy. Like, while I'm here with these groceries in the kitchen, let me put them up. And so now we have to rethink those things. So things that we've been able to do for a long, long time, we have to rethink those things. The other thing is distance. 6 feet apart or 6 feet under. Take your choice. And so for me, being in a store when we have people who don't want to social distance, who you try to make sure that you're social distancing, and all of a sudden you look over and to your left or to your right, there's another customer. And it's like, okay, why are you right here? Like, that dot back there is for you. So the 6 feet apart or 6 feet under is important. The other thing is to talk about mental health and what goes on with people's mental health. So we talked about being able to get access to food. We talked about the whole wearing a mask. Like, these are things that people are not used to, right? And so you've always had a hard time getting stuff. Now you're going into your store to get things that you need, and they're not there. The toilet paper's not there. The paper towels are not there. And you go back and you're like, but I need this stuff right now. Like, I can't wait for your delivery truck in 5 days. But this is the store that's closest to my house, and I don't have a car. And so if the provisions are not provided for me and it's close to home, what goes on with me with the psyche? What goes on when we know that members of our community are dying and that we cannot funeralize them properly? Now we're witnessing murder after murder after murder on TV. When they leave out of the house, we already were hyper vigilant about our children leaving. And now we're like, hold on, like, is this like open season on Black folks? Like, we're reading about stuff and seeing stuff every day. And so for African Americans who may need a little bit more help mentally, being able to go sit down and talk to somebody or teletalk, which is what a lot of the therapists are doing now, what I would recommend is one of my partners. So my partner is the Professional Black Christian Therapy Network. So the Professional Black Christian Therapy Network is a network of African American therapists that handle everything from children to your grandma. So they handle everybody. So they have someone who focuses on everyone in the family. So the Professional Black Christian Therapy Network. So I'm going to read off my notes so I can tell you their phone number. So the Professional Black Christian Therapy Network number, their number is 1-800-574-7178. So it's 1-800-574-7178. We know that our communities are impacted. We know that people who are being impacted by domestic violence are still being impacted by domestic violence, except for now, it's all behind closed doors. We have children that have been abused or that are hungry and that are going through some challenges and things right now. I have one family that has 7 children, and the child reached out to me and said, I saw your thing and that you feed people, and will you feed us? And I'm like, I surely will. And I added those 7 people to my list, and I, gave them, like when I gave them the things that they needed, the children wrote me back and said, I just want you to know that, like, we got a lot of food, like, and I gave them their own. They all got their own snack bag for a month. So just imagine, like, a month's worth of, and I give them a menu. So the menu has what they're supposed to be eating every single day. And we're not just giving junk. Like, a lot of times you go to places and they give you stuff that you totally don't want. And so for me, I think about as a parent. And as a poor parent, as a parent who grew up with a mom who was in domestic violence situations, and we had to flee. And so we didn't always have the healthiest choices, but we had a choice. So my mom made sure that we ate. And so for me, I go to the deli and get meat sliced for my families, just like they're my family. So when I go to the deli and I'm like, yeah, I'll take 50 pounds of sliced turkey, and the deli is like, is she serious? Did she just say 50 pounds? And I'm like, yeah, I want 50 pounds of this, or I want, the Hebrew National hot dogs or the Nathan's hot dogs. Like, they don't get cheapy hot dogs. They get the good stuff. So we're giving them something. Hot dogs aren't the healthiest, but I'm going to give you the ones with no nitrates. If we're giving Lunchables, kids love Lunchables, but when you're poor, your parents can't afford Lunchables. So they get Lunchables, like they're able to get Lunchables. They're able to get snacks, walking tacos. Like, we have walking tacos as one of our provisions. So we put the meat, the taco meat is already there. We give them the cheese, we give them the lettuce, we give them the taco sauce, the sour cream, and the Doritos, and they can have a walking taco. And then I cook, they get hot meals too. So they'll get a hot meal that comes with their provisions. And then other chefs have cooked. Black Box Fix has sent food over for the children. Chef Eric Wells has sent meals over for the children. And this is not what I do, but I can do cooking well. I can hold my own in the kitchen and make sure that people get what they need. When you have communities that are food insecure, you see our violence rates go up. And if you notice, lately we've had a string of break-ins. We've had a lot of carjackings, and they're not jacking new cars. Like, I'm like, okay, Mercedes-Benz or somebody's Santa Fe. Who the hell wants a Santa Fe? Why are you jacking a Santa Fe? So I saw somebody was jacked for their 2011 Santa Fe. I'm like, and it's 9 years old? Like, who jacks you for a 2011 Santa Fe? And so for that, I look at that as a calling out for our community, that we need to do a better job of feeding folks. That's why we do the work that we do. And that's why my organization will continue to do the work, regardless of whether we get any money or not. We're a non-funded organization. And so as a non-funded organization, like, we don't get any money from any foundations here in Cleveland because I will raise hell. Like, I do speak out about the issues that are disproportionately impacting my community. And I'm probably one of the few Black voices that don't care if I had to go against the mayor, city council, or anybody else. For me, I'm only going to make it through here one time. And if I come through here and I don't do everything that I can do to change the conditions of my community, even if it means being blackballed and blacklisted, like, you can blacklist me, but God makes sure that everything happens. And so what I'm asking for my community is for us to stay strong, for us to hold on, for us to reach out to our networks if we have them. And if we don't, for us to reach out for people who can help us with the things that we need the most. Wear a mask, wash your hands, 6 feet apart or 6 feet under. I love y'all. Peace.
Let's go ahead and move to Mr. Jerry Elias Pena, who's the founder and consultant at Astrategia and partner at Gradient.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And thank you for your patience and being able to move to another location to get this message across. We appreciate you.
No worries, no worries. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate all the energy that young folks are bringing. I think it's so amazing to have young people civically engaged in this country at this time. So such a pleasure to be on this call. I guess I wanted to talk about two things. One, how we're activating community during this pandemic and during this time in this country. And then the second piece is how I am trying to make sure I have been connecting and really centering with my family. So I've been wearing many hats lately outside of my consulting work. I also am a neighborhood builder with Neighborhood Connections, and I am the civic engagement coordinator for Metro West Development Corporation. So my work around the city has been focused on trying to engage residents in a safe manner through this pandemic. One of the things that we've been doing that's really cool, and we borrowed a little bit from my island of Puerto Rico. So in Puerto Rico, during the elections or within the civic engagement process, we do what's called caravanas, where folks get into their cars. You're like 15, 20 cars. They play music. You play a PSA. You play drums, congas. You get really loud in neighborhoods to get folks excited. And we always say on the island, the loudest caravana is the one who wins the election. And so one of my colleagues, Selena Pagan from the Young Latino Network, has been really instrumental in bringing those caravanas here to the city. And so we've done a couple of them on the Near West Side. We're actually getting ready to do one in partnership with the amazing Julian Kahn in the Buckeye area. And so on June 20th, we'll be doing a caravana in Buckeye with Buckeye partners, making sure it's really culturally relevant to the neighborhood and also making sure that it's safe, right? And so what we mean by safe is that everybody is at a minimum of 6 feet apart during the planning process. Everybody is in their own set of cars. So the only folks that are riding together during these caravanas are folks that have been quarantined together, just to make sure that, again, we're keeping that safe distance. But really focusing and centering those caravanas around the census and around voting. And I do understand and respect folks on the call who are not too much into our political system right now. And I get it. But as I've been doing this work for the last 20 years, and not only through this pandemic, but through what we're seeing in this country after George Floyd's death, is that we're seeing communities, impoverished communities, communities of color, who don't have the resources that they really need in order to operate on equal ground with everybody else in this country. And so for me, the census and voting is so important this year. And I know every election we talk about it being the most important time in our lives to vote. And I really feel like this is the most important time in our lives to vote. If we really want to change some of the structures, right? Even conversations around reinvestment and reinvesting funds and resources around policing, right? We know that some of that money that comes in to the state into the city is really determined by population and also by the census. And so it's really important that we're counted in our communities if we do want to reinvest those dollars into other safety priorities as the conversations are moving forward in the country. To the second piece, how have I been keeping my family grounded and also civically engaged through this process? There's many things. I actually think this time for helping me recenter myself with my family as a community organizer and advocate, and someone who the last couple of years has been like zooming all over the country, working on different issues. I sort of lost track of what it was like to be a father, to be a husband, to be centered with my family and my kids. I have a son who's going to be a junior at Loyola University in Chicago. I have a daughter who's a freshman here in the city of Cleveland. And though I feel like we have a great relationship, it wasn't until these last couple months where I was able to really get to know my kids again, through deeper conversation, through hanging out. Every couple of days since they've been home, I'll take them to Dairy Queen or Sonic's to get their ice cream fix, but we'll have a deep conversation during those rides about what's happening in the country and how they're feeling as kids of color. I think it's really important for us to have those conversations with our children. The other thing that I've been doing as a husband is really taking time to work out with my wife. So, every day or every other day, we run together, we exercise together. This morning, I was going to go run, and she's like, no, wait for me. So she's back at the office working, waited for her to get off at 4, went running real quick, then came back and got ready for this important conversation. And so to me, reconnecting with family, being a father, a husband, a friend, calling my friends through this process, especially my friends of color, my African-American brothers and sisters who are in this struggle right now, making sure that they are okay and figuring out ways how I can support them, but not be a louder voice than them in this fight, to me is super, super important. And so that was a lot, but that's how I've been keeping engaged and keeping my family in the fight. So thank you.
We really appreciate it. It does take a family connection to be able to make sure that we as a community thrive. I'm going to move into our final panelist from the urgency of the family connection. That's Miss Tamisha Walker. She's one of the Hasani Management Garden Camp parents, and she's also the owner of the Walker Group.
Hi, Nikki. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Welcome.
So this has been a really wonderful symposium. Thank you to everyone that's been on. Thank you, Chanitha, for having us to be here. Everyone has shared so much information. I mean, just being in the room, it's been a wonderful opportunity to gain so much knowledge. So thank you to everyone that has spoken so far. As we're talking about family, this has absolutely just been a time where, and I love the fact that, Mr. Pena, you had, that you shared about the connection that you're making with your kids. Like, honestly, this has been a time that has been amazing with the amount of space that has been created to get to know your children even more, right? Not having to run, not being so busy. Now, for me, having a business and having children and still being an essential worker, it has been even a little bit busier for me. But to be honest, to have them around, to be able to eat ice cream and go for bike rides and walks has been amazing. Having to talk through what it feels like to be in a pandemic, what it's like to not be able to be with your friends and deal with those emotions have been, it's been a lot. But I will say, just stay encouraged. Like everything I do pretty much with my company, the Walker Group, is working with moms and babies. And right now, this has been just a time of true trying because they don't know exactly what the next turn is going to be, just like all of us. But for them, it's either double or triple or maybe quadruple fold, depending on how many little ones they're going to be having. So it's shifted the dynamic of the family as far as the type of support that you're able to provide. I'm a doula, so it's great to be able to go into the hospitals and help and support families. And I teach childbirth education, so being able to educate them in that way. But with this new frontier, it has been something quite drastic. So I will say now with everyone having to wear a mask, being with this campaign has just been a real true opportunity to share my heart with families and to be able to provide to them what they need during this pandemic. So being able to talk to them and say, even though it's a scary time, which is the same thing, you know, most of us parents are saying to our kids, we can make it through it, right? And even though it seems like, you know, for most of us, like I have 4 kids by birth and 4 by wedding present. So for us to be at home, those kids by birth that I have, and being able to have them close, like that's been absolutely amazing. But for a lot of parents who have little ones, they're not able to do that. They're being told that if you get too close to your child, there could be a problem, right? Whether you do or you don't have an illness right now. So you have moms that are looking to nurse their children and breastfeed their babies that want to do that skin to skin time, and dads that want to do that skin to skin time. And you have different medical organizations that are coming out and saying something new just about every week. Like we've all been experiencing that. And it seems like birthing families are experiencing that even more. You know, it's multiplied for them because they not only have the awareness of what we're learning and what we're gathering, but then it's a new layer for what they have to learn with their new little ones. So it's been a really interesting time, but I will say staying abreast of the things that the CDC is saying, what the World Health Organization is saying, and keeping in connection with various organizations that are providing solid education to families has been really, really necessary and so important during this time. So being able to be a part of this campaign, being able to show my children that they're not helpless in this situation has been something that I wouldn't give up. You know, being able to let them know that even in difficult situations, even when it seems like at times the world is crumbling around you, you can make a difference. You are a game changer. You are a world influencer. You are an ambassador. To hear that come off of their lips, you are an ambassador. It's been just a pleasure. So having an opportunity to work with Hasani Management and having an opportunity to be a parent in the camp, I've watched my kids matriculate through this camp for 6 years. I've watched them dig in the dirt. I've watched them share food with each other. I've watched them walk in and say, I don't know what that is, but at the camp, we try everything, and they tried it and they loved it and then told somebody else about it, you know? So I love being able to be here and show them yet again on another front and another area of life that you can do it. You can make a difference. You are amazing, right? And that's what we all get a chance to come here together and do. So I really just want to say thank you to Hasani Management for giving us the opportunity to come together, to not feel helpless, but to really pull together, to use our resources and to be able to share with the entire world the opportunity to be safe, to learn how to be healthier in various areas. Like we even were able to give out different packets to help people to stay safe, to stay healthy along with their mask. Being able to sit there and cut with the kids and measure, like, thank you so much, Janitha, for giving us the opportunity, another space, another place to spend time together as a family and to learn and grow. Like this has been a really trying time, but an extremely unique time in getting the opportunity to change the world from where we are here in Cleveland, Ohio. So thank you so much.
I'm going to go ahead and bring on Michael Oatman, who's our next panelist for this panel. Again, this is about the urgency of the family connection. Again, Michael Oatman is a playwright mentor and former playwright in residence at the Caravan Theater. Michael?
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Hi.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to work my way around the technology. I feel like I'm a 70-year-old man sometimes.
We all are. You're not alone.
Back in my day, I had a beeper and I liked it that way. How's everybody doing?
Great. Thank you for joining.
Indeed. My spiel is going to be pretty simple. I just want to talk about during this time of COVID-19 and other challenges that one thing that I've that keeps coming up over and over with both me and my wife. My wife is Michelle Broom, and thankfully I have somebody who kind of has helped me to see this pandemic as something that doesn't necessarily have to be a detriment, but could be a time of refocusing. And so what I'm starting to see is that instead of trying to overpower everything, I have to use a bit of brain over brawn. And so what I have to start doing is getting involved. So what I've been doing in the last couple weeks is sort of really engaging in things that can move me forward and push me down another path, and as opposed to raging at the moon, I actually started to be proactive. I was actually at my first protest in probably, 10 years. I actually got out there with my bad knee and actually participated in a protest we had here in Euclid for Mr. Floyd, the death of Mr. Floyd, and being really, really focused. And I've also decided to take this time to use it as a pivot point in my career as a playwright and start doing some of the things that I've, dreamed of doing. And I think that can be a lesson for all of us. And the first thing that I've learned to do, and I've learned this through the help of my wife, is sort of making a list of something, sort of like a real goal of what I want to reach. And then once I take that goal, putting some action steps in place to get there, as opposed to just being paralyzed and waiting for things to happen, actually starting to make them happen. And I sit around and feel sorry for myself. When this year began, this is going to be one of my biggest years in a long time as a playwright. I had four different shows lined up, booked, paid for, and I was ready to get it. And right as I was going into the final week of one of my shows, we had the quarantine shut down, and I lost that show. And then I had another show that was going up in April, and I lost that show. And then I had another show going up in June, booked, lost that show. And I had another show in November and lost that show. So obviously a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of my art just got wiped away with this year. And for a brief period, all of about, 2 days, I was in a little bit of a depression. But my wife told me to pick myself up and say, hey, what can we do here? What can we do to move forward in this time as an artist? I mean, for me, it's not like I'm somebody who can do a play. It's hard to do a play when you can't get people to, gather. Literally, my business is gathering people together. In fact, my final two plays were two plays that were aimed at 70 and 80-year-old people. The two stars of each play were in their 80s. So you talk about bad timing. I had two plays in which I wanted to get a bunch of 80-year-olds together and watch theater. So obviously that was a disaster. But I decided to turn it to a pivot point and turn it into a positive. And I'd always wanted to be a screenplay writer. So what I decided was to create a goal of being a screenplay creator. And I've been sitting around ever since writing screenplays. And I don't know if that they'll go anywhere. I don't know if they'll be successful. But since the pandemic began, I've already been picked up in one theater here in Cleveland. I won't name them, but a local theater picked up a work that I wrote during quarantine. And I'm also writing screenplays and pushing towards that goal. and letting my mind focus on what I need to do. And so I guess that's my little bit of a testament for what's been going on with me in the past few months or so. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing. That is awesome how you have decided to reinvent yourself and to be able to take this as a pivot moment to be able to do something different in your career, but still giving back to the arts.
I would like to turn everything over to our keynote speaker, the powerful, wonderful Miss Alana. Did you want to go ahead and you can formally introduce her, Miss Nikki? Thank you.
I will definitely do so. Thank you so much, Miss Alana. I understand that you are a social justice organizer. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to close us out with from this symposium?
Yes, so I'm a social justice organizer. I work for New Voices for Reproductive Justice, which is an intersectional framework of working on reproductive rights, mass incarceration, environmental rights, LGBTQ rights, and everything that really centers around the Black woman and all of the different conditions in which impacts our ability to be able to have children, decide whether or not we want to have children, and what is the conditions of the society in which we are deciding to have a child in. And so kind of piggybacking it off of some of the things that Rep. House brought up and Sarah and some of the other people have brought up around education, but also safety during this time, it is very vital that all of us are paying attention and very vigilant around what are the policies and the legislation that is being enacted that affects us on a municipal level and at a county and state level when it comes to safety. And also doing our research around, a lot of times, I know a lot of people have seen things around defunding the police, but making sure we actually understand what that means and working with our council and our community members to come up with our own safety coalitions as community members. We are not a barbaric people. We are a loving and holistic people. And so when we are doing our research, we find out about community policing and community organizations that can even help us improve in that work. And it starts at your local city council. People just think of Cleveland, but there's also like looking at Euclid City Council and being able to go and get a group of folks who are able to say, hey, we're going to have like this community block club, and be able to lobby for an allocation of resources, or going into like a Cleveland Heights or a Bedford. We have that power, and being able to understand how we as a people, we can make sure that we are here to support one another in those endeavors.
I just wanted to take the time to say thank you to everyone who took the time out of their busy day to come together as a family. This is a family. This is a true unity right here. And it really takes a village, and it's not just for children, as adults as well. And I just want to thank you all for being a part of this platform here tonight. This is a first for Hasani Management. Again, I do apologize for technical issues, but at the end of the day, when you sum it all up, this was a wonderful symposium filled with so much substance. And all of the youth that have been a part of this, we just want to take the time to thank you for your time and investing in as we survive and thrive during this pandemic crisis. Also, just encouraging everyone as we're coping and learning how to heal and go through this process. Let's all stay connected, and let's make sure that we realize that being united and coming together is very critical. Thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful evening.